ladies and gentlemen. It's Modern Investing on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Starr, and I have today's guest, Dr. Milan Sambarak. Welcome to the show, Milan.
Thank you for inviting me. Delighted to be here.
Thank you. And we have Jim Eade from Eade Foundation. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank you, Sasha. Great to be here.
And we have also a founder of the network, Nick Paliveda. Welcome to the show, Nick. Oops.
Yeah.
I'm barely here, Sasha.
Hi, Nick.
I have another meeting I have to go to shortly.
Okay. So let's start with we're almost closing the year. I hope we'll have yet another show next week, and then we'll go into January attack on stocks and everything else. And so let me ask you, okay, Nick, since you have to leave earlier, could you tell us how was your last year for investments? How well have you done?
Oh, it was good, but the thing is, I was in mainly steady assets. What was bad, Sasha, I didn't listen to you and throw everything in NVIDIA. Yeah, I heard about the good returns, but you just happen to be playing in the hottest stock for the year. It's like playing in Netflix for the last decade. You were right in the hot seat. So there's some days I go, I should just thrown everything in NVIDIA and waited.
No, but you don't have to. You'll be surprised that I very seldom hold positions in NVIDIA. Even now I don't have any shares of NVIDIA. I sold 2 puts, cash covered puts on NVIDIA, and hopefully I will be exercised and acquire NVIDIA, because NVIDIA will essentially go to 600, 650 next year. So I don't mind to have NVIDIA under $500. The question remains whether I will be lucky enough. But if not, then I'll get a little bit of cash infusion of my account, which I never mind. So that's the best of both worlds. So really, if with gains that I generated last year, in fact, I've done it with a very little risk. That's what's amazing, because you can go probably to futures, and I don't know. Some people believe that oil will be $150 very soon, and they probably by now lost their shirt on this recommendation. But anyway, one day maybe it will move higher, so somebody will make a little bit of money here and there. But again, there is a fair amount of risk involved, whether you are buying whole futures or selling short. There is a substantial risk, and it could be rewarding if you're right. You can generate a little bit of money, but it's still a much riskier strategy than what I'm employing. Jim, how about you? What you've done? What are your best trades?
Yeah, I'm not terribly active in the fourth quarter, but in December my ears start to prick up a little bit, because I think that there's people that are taking advantage of their gains for the year and selling for tax purposes. So now I'm once again highly active in monitoring. And Sasha, I give you credit for changing my mind about derivatives and the way that we both were talking up NVIDIA during the course of the year, but I owned the stock and I sold it after I made my target. And then you made a great deal more money by hedging your bets with the derivative trading, selling and buying puts and calls. And I think that, or just selling, I'm still not clear, but I've dedicated 2024 to getting involved in the derivatives. But I will be taking baby steps in that direction. The thing that I am most paying attention to now is our federal debt and the interest payments that we make on it. Because what I say about buying companies now is, if they have a lot of debt, avoid them. And I think that's true for the nation as a whole. We run these deficits that are staggering in the totals, and we think that we can't possibly sustain it. And but I'm kind of thinking, there's still, as Milan has told us many times, and I agree with, there's still no sign that people are putting their money anywhere else but in the U.S. dollar. And so when they go to auction the U.S. debt, they're oversubscribed. So this is a sign to me that we're still in we obviously are in a good economy despite people's pessimism. Jobs are available, unemployment is way down, and inflation has ticked back to acceptable levels. And so I think that all signs are positive for investors going into 2024. My horizon doesn't go very much further beyond that.
Hmm. Very interesting. I'd like to mention is that if you take U.S. debt, which is now what, $34 trillion, and you have to make annual payment to service this debt, say $1 trillion, at the interest rates, let's see, 5% now.
Right.
But interestingly enough, if the U.S. debt will go up to $68 trillion, and interest rates will go down to 2.5%, for example, it will require the same money to
Yeah.
service
Yeah.
debt. So
And the interest rates are trending down. Yeah.
absolutely. So I really don't see that debt I know that Nick every day is talking about this horrible debt and how you have to decrease it and so on. I really don't see any reason to decrease it. I would increase it tremendously. And
Well, there's cause for concern, Sasha, because after Medicare and Social Security, the interest rate on our debt is the third biggest expense for the federal government. But
Right.
as you're pointing out, if these interest rates tick down, which they are, then servicing the debt will cost the same, even if it goes up. But I think that the government has to become more fiscally responsible and can't keep running these deficits the way they are. And our government is tied into knots and is not doing anything. So I see a certain amount of pessimism, a cause for pessimism. I understand it, but I don't think, based on what I read about the debt, servicing the debt, if the people were saying when they issued the debt and they weren't buying it, then I would be alarmed. But they are.
Jim, it's very interesting. My observation is, Milan, I don't know if you will agree with that, is that U.S. people, they have fantastic economy, record-breaking earnings.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Everything is flying. Interest rates will going down next year. So instead of enjoying themselves and saying, "Oh, what a great time we live," everybody is whining about inflation and about this and this U.S. debt of $34 trillion and Medicare and this, and people are worrying and worrying and worrying. This is fantastic. I never seen any country where people worry so much.
Well, Milan, I got one more question, then I'll pass it to you. One more statement. I read this wonderful quote, and I'd forgotten who said it, so I'm sorry I can't attribute it. But if you want to make money, but everyone talking about this debt crisis, yawn. If you want to lose money, panic.
Exactly. Yeah. Elon, how was the last year for you, and how you doing these days? Milan,
Can you hear us?
hear
Yeah.
me?
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Yeah, I asked you.
Finally.
Well, a couple of things I'd like to draw attention to. For instance, today at 2:30 today, after our meeting is over, the Fed Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell will hold a news conference, and investors are looking for a degree of clarity, which will not happen. He will not say anything that we can act on. Now, interest rates and stock markets have an inverse relationship, which is immediate. So we should know where we're headed. And so, given the fact that, let's see what's happening, the interest rates are now at a 22-year high. To combat inflation, interest rates have been growing at the fastest rate in over 40 years. They have to come down sooner or later. Now, Jerome Powell will not tell us what he plans to do because they never do. They always use language that makes it difficult for us to interpret where we're headed. But given the fact that interest rates are at an all-time high and they've been growing at a fastest rate in over 40 years, they have to come down sooner or later. And of course, our portfolios will react directly and immediately. There are some aspects where the relationship is not immediate. Say, for instance, in real estate might take a little longer, but markets and interest rates respond inversely and immediately. And we're going to be facing that. So people can watch Jerome Powell today at 2:30.
And yawn.
Sorry?
And yawn.
And yeah, yeah, that's right. Now, the other thing that I personally experienced recently is, I think it was Eugene Fama who said that your portfolio is like a bar of soap. The more you handle it, the smaller it gets. And we've been telling our members, the Monday Morning Millionaire members, we have about 300 members. We tell them, we suggest that they invest in the American economy as a whole and just stay there. And the American economy as a whole has gone up for the week, for the month, for the year, for 5 years, and for 10 years. And people who have stuck with that notion, hold the American economy as a whole, have done very well. Yeah. You know, the biggest favor that the Canadian government has given Canadian investors is to eliminate the foreign content restrictions which were in place right up to 2005. There was a limit to how much foreign content your tax advantage portfolio could have. They limited that in 2005. And so we've been telling our members, recommending them that they invest in the American economy as a whole. Don't pick stocks because they don't always work out. For everybody who buys a stock, buying it for somebody who is selling it, both can occasionally be right, but most of the time they aren't. So what happened was I was kind of bored by watching the SPY go up and up and up. So I sold some covered calls on it in my registered accounts. And I was assigned, and I wound up being in cash and having to get back into SPY at a higher price than I got for it when it was called away. So yeah, by handling my portfolio more than I should have, it's like a bar of soap, it got smaller. And so, you know, with hindsight, we can always think of many things that we could have done better. Now, James, you mentioned people buying, selling for tax purposes at this time of year. And I think I stated once that Warren Buffett said that in over 60 years of investing, he has never seen anyone who shied away from a good deal because of the connected tax implications.
Yet so people do it.
Oh, that's true. People do it, yeah. They can save themselves a lot of trouble by ignoring the tax implications. Yes. They're just getting into something because it's worthwhile.
But we have a lot of these money managers that want to show the people that their clients that they've done so well. And so you have a lot of that going on as well.
A lot of that, yeah.
But what you said about the interest rates, Milan, I think we need to also control for inflation. And because inflation went up after the global distribution breakdown due to the pandemic, and inflation soared for a period of time. And if we control for inflation, the interest rate that we're paying is comparable to 2008. So we're not really at historic highs. If you take the absolute numbers, yes, but if you adjust for inflation, no. This is not such a terrible time if we control for inflation and if we assume that inflation is under control and coming down. Which,
let me ask you a question in connection with that, James. First of all, let me define disinflation. Disinflation means that we still have inflation, but at a decreasing rate. So we've had periods of disinflation in the last few years, certainly. How does disinflation affect interest rates?
Well, as you say, they're disproportionately proportional, you know, the market and the interest rates. But the interest rates that, for example, if I'm a U.S. Treasury buyer, my return will be smaller. I won't be getting 5%. I'll be getting 3% in the not too distant future. And so, you know, servicing that debt will also be less expensive. And so when I have to pay out all these people buying U.S. Treasuries, I will be paying less interest on that as the output. So it's good news that the interest rates are down.
Yeah. To quote Confucius, who said, study the past if you would define the future. If we take a look at the past, the American economy has been the strongest economy in history for over 100 years, close to 200 years. As we mentioned to our members, just put your money into the American economy as a whole.
Yeah.
By buying an exchange-traded fund which tracks the S&P 500, and SPY happens to be the best because it's the oldest, the largest, it has the narrowest bid-ask spread, and stick with your business because many of our members who are still working will make a lot more money on their job, be it medicine, engineering, dentistry, accounting, whatever it is, than they will in their investing. So they should stick with their job and put all their savings into SPY and keep at it until retirement, at which point they can withdraw 4% safely if they have an asset allocation which is correct. And that asset allocation is close to 50-50. It can be 45-55, 60-40. That's not nearly as important as having it in place with a large amount of cash or near cash there, which is something that Wall Street doesn't want because Wall Street is not making anything on cash that's sitting idle. And cash that's sitting idle is important to be there.
And as I've been saying all along, the Fed had a mistaken response to the global pandemic. The global pandemic broke up our global distribution system and prices got higher. They were scarcer. They were harder to get to the grocery shelves. And so prices went up and up. And the Fed's response was the traditional response to inflation, which was based on an overheated economy, which we did not have. They kept raising interest rates. And and the whole time they were doing it, I heard over and over again that we're headed for an inflation or a recession. The recession is the only way to bring down interest rates. Well, it was nonsense because this was a unique problem, a global pandemic. The inflation was everywhere. It wasn't just the United States. So, what we saw was a repair of the global distribution system, and all of a sudden products were shipped. Now, if, war influences and starts disrupting our shipping again, prices will go up again. But if not, if all things are equal, the global supply chain is established again and prices will come down gradually because companies have found that people will be willing to pay higher prices. So they are not going to overnight bring them back to the levels they were in 2020. But all signs are still positive. The global distribution system has been repaired. The Fed's response, belated response, it shouldn't have been raising them as it did, but since they did, and they take credit for inflation coming down now, which it was not they're doing at all. Inflation is going to be lower. It's already around 3%. Their target is 2%. So we're almost there, and they'll start gradually taking their interest rates down. And so bonds won't look quite as attractive. The returns won't be quite as attractive. So people would go, where do I put my money? I'll put it in the U.S. stock market.
Yeah. Now, I think economists define recession as 2 consecutive declining quarters.
Yes, yeah, that's generally, yeah.
On an individual basis, many of our members have no idea what it is. They don't feel it because they're so well off. We are largely dealing with professional people.
Right.
They don't feel a recession, although others do. People at the grocery store very often feel it. So, that you could say that recession is when the neighbor is unemployed, and the depression is when I am unemployed.
But, also I can tell just by, I live in the heart of Silicon Valley, and I can tell by traffic, and I can tell by golf course how busy they are. People are doing well when the golf courses are busy and the traffic is high.
Yeah, that's right.
And,
truck traffic particularly.
Yes.
Yeah.
People are commuting to jobs, there's a lot of traffic, and I have the luxury of being able to avoid commute traffic. So it doesn't affect me, but I observe it. And it's, it's one of those dead giveaways. So the quarter to quarter type of thing that the technical analysis will say is not as important to me as what I can see, and
Yeah.
and the quarterly returns have been phenomenal.
Yeah.
Sasha, you might know the exact data. I don't know. I think it was around 5% in the last quarter, something like that. So the GDP growth is just, you can't deny that the economy is doing well.
I think it will be much higher next year. And Milan, I'm wondering, when you are suggesting that by investing in S&P 500, you are investing in U.S. economy, which is by far the strongest in the world.
Yeah.
But as you may know, there are about 8,000 stocks listed on
Yeah.
Nasdaq, American market, and New York Stock Exchange. So out of 8,000, you investing in 500, which is a small fraction of real U.S. economy. So
Hold it,
it's
hold it. No, it is not a small fraction of the U.S. economy. It's a small fraction of the securities that are listed on the various
absolutely.
stock exchanges worldwide, but it is a large fraction of the U.S. economy because they happen to be the biggest
They're
economy.
giant companies.
Okay. You're talking. Let's clarify. Okay, you're talking about the total economy of 500 largest U.S. companies is bigger, most likely, than say 7,500 other stocks. Okay,
Bigger than most nations' national gross domestic products. Yeah.
Okay, have to check it. I'm not so sure. But what I'd like to that's not really my question. Where I'm leading is that all S&P 500, as much as it's wonderful and great, there are only 7 stocks that actually take in 500. So 493 stocks.
Yeah.
They are your average companies, and you can find actually in index of Russell 2000, there are leading companies in that sector who are doing much better than the laggards of 500. So if you,
that's true. That's true. Yeah.
So if you will take 7 companies of 500, which are the absolute locomotive of the U.S. economy, of U.S. stock market, of S&P 500, and you would concentrate only on this 7 stocks, or even better. Okay, you love S&P 500. Okay, so you invest half of your money in 500, and half of your money is in 7, glorious 7. You will see what's going to happen with your investment in glorious 7 and all the rest of the S&P 500, which include glorious 7.
No, the dividend aristocrats are securities, are individual stocks which have paid a rising dividend annually for over 20 years.
But you're not recommending.
Wait a minute. So dividend aristocrats, there are portfolios made up entirely of dividend aristocrats, and there are not many. There'd be about 16, 18, fewer than 20 companies. Coca-Cola would be an example of companies that have paid an increasing dividend every year for more than 20 years. So now, if you take a look at a portfolio made up entirely of dividend aristocrats, and yes, such portfolios are available.
Yep.
If you take a look at that and compare that to S&P 500, they've done only half as well. So history does.
Yeah, but I never talk about investing in dividend aristocrats. You brought it up.
But you talk about investing in dividend generating companies.
No, I didn't talk
about
it.
We do talk about dividends, especially when we're talking about it. It's a certain segment of the population where they can't take risk and they want a steady income.
Yeah.
We call them widow stocks.
Jim, we talked about that, but not today. We talked about it a week ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, but not today, definitely. So I don't know where this idea of dividend aristocrats came from. I never even mentioned that today. What I mentioned, okay, one more time, but it's the last one. I mentioned is that there is a great advantage to invest in 7 leading stocks of S&P 500. They called Magnificent Seven, and everybody knows their names.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is that they are responsible for 90% of S&P 500 gains. So therefore, I don't understand why anybody would invest in remaining 493 stocks
Well,
generates around zero return instead of dealing with the real 7 magnificent stocks
okay.
which
You know,
generate 90%.
the Magnificent Seven is a film based on a Japanese film producer Akira Kurosawa.
Seven Samurai.
Yeah, and so of the Magnificent Seven, 4 died. 4 didn't make it. So,
Milan,
if
are
you,
you talking today about investing or about movie business?
well, you call
Well,
them.
are those 7 stable? Are they always the same 7? Sasha, that's just a question I have. I haven't studied it. I don't know.
Okay, what they mean is FANG stocks, which means well, now it used to be Facebook, now it's Meta,
Yes.
but it's the same stock.
Google. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Apple.
that's why they don't call it FANG anymore because it's Meta.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tradition. Okay, it's obviously Google, it's obviously Microsoft, it's obviously Netflix, it's obviously Nvidia, and there are a couple of other stocks which may change from time to time, but they're still the same. So
Yeah.
it's
And Apple has been a good place to have your
Apple,
money.
of course, yeah. But I want to tell you, I read very interesting opinion that in year 2026 or maybe even earlier, the capitalization of Nvidia will be higher than that of Apple.
Wow.
Because what they're saying is that
I
the
spoke too soon.
business, Apple business is focused on amount of cell phones, what they're going to sell.
Sure.
Computers are not producing really big returns in their business.
It's
So on.
so interesting, isn't it? But that's true.
It's a phone company, okay?
Yep.
And they're bringing new phones, i15, i16, i75, i328,
Yeah.
which they're almost all the same. So people will change from one model to the next model, so on. But there is probably saturation of that market. Now, the other market of phones, which controlled by Samsung and a few other players, they also develop. Even Motorola got back into the business, and there is a Nokia, and there are still few players left here and there, and they are going to fight like crazy for the remaining market share.
Right.
So essentially, it's becoming a commodity business because all whatever the options Apple can produce, all other companies can do just about the same. Plus, it's very competitive. They can provide better prices and all this stuff. So, NVIDIA is in different league altogether. Hi, Mark.
I agree.
They dominate the market for certain microprocessors, and they're going so far ahead that there is very little anybody who can compete with them in some segments, like advanced micro devices. They can compete,
Yeah, they're trying.
and they're doing quite well.
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay,
Yeah,
Mark.
yeah, I had a quick question for you. And it was actually based on something that happened this weekend here at the cultural center that I'm working at. Actually, I got two questions. One that I know you'll enjoy, Sasha, but this is a more pressing question and everything, which is that there are two major companies that are doing well here in North Carolina, and one of them had a film that is showing well, and it's a fairly new company. But I was wondering from an investment standpoint, and maybe Jim has some ideas since he's in the West Coast and all along those lines. But would you invest in Google Fiber, and would you invest in Paramount Plus? Because Paramount Plus just recently did something with Bass Reeves, and it had a lot of good numbers around that particular TV series and everything. So I was wondering, Jim, you're in California. Would you invest in either one of those, Paramount Plus or Google Fiber? Because I understand Google Fiber is giving Spectrum here in the South a run for its money and everything. So I just wanted your take on that as a West Coast investor.
Jim, Netflix is another member of Magnificent Seven. Sorry, I forgot that. Okay.
Yeah. but they weren't 10 years ago.
Netflix, and
Netflix.
they're now doing better than ever.
I
Their
know.
songs keep
I know.
rising, and they're bringing up new shows every
Yeah.
week. And
And they
some of
changed
them
their
are
strategy, so they've stayed there. But I'm a big fan of the Netflix. But Mark, to answer your questions, I think Paramount Plus is very interesting, and I'm tracking it. And I think the future of fiber is solid. I mean, I really think that the wires, the you know the underground and all of this kind of stuff. Like we're going to get 5G or whatever through the air, but I still think fiber has a place, a role, and there's speeds that they can generate are better. So I don't see that changing anytime soon. Yeah, I'd be I wouldn't say bullish on both, but I would say that they're both interesting to me.
Now, James, if you buy one of those securities, who are you buying them from?
Yeah,
Why,
somebody who doesn't
why is
believe in
that
them.
individual selling?
The seller doesn't believe in their future.
Yeah.
but let me ask you, Milan, your members of your Millionaire Monday Club, when they're buying the S&P 500, from whom are they buying it?
Good point. Good point. Yeah. You know that there is a possible way that both parties could benefit. For instance,
Yeah.
If our members have nothing in their portfolios but SPY, that's all they have. And they've done very well over the last year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, done very well. Now they need some money to buy groceries and pay their rent, so to speak. They will have to sell some of their portfolio. Is the right thing to do because they have to pay their municipal taxes and buy groceries. It's the right thing to do. And they will be selling it to somebody who is buying it knowing that it will continue to grow based on its past history. Both of them are correct.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I have mentioned a number of times, like I sold NVIDIA for a nice profit, and NVIDIA has continued to go up. And once in a while I kick myself, but basically I just stayed disciplined, and when I hit the target, I sold. And Sasha has been changing my mind about continuing to play with derivatives might have been the way to go. But this discipline has sold me well because I usually pick solid stocks. I'm often right, and I hit my target and sell. And when I'm wrong, I never am wrong to that level. I can't remember being wrong to that level.
James, I think I mentioned this earlier in another program. One of the Rothschilds, the wealthiest people on the planet, said, "I made my money by selling too soon."
I can see that and everything. Hey, Sasha, before I turn it back over to y'all and everything, one of the things I said I was going to do to be a lighthearted conversation was earlier we were talking before Jim joined about this notion of service people and how you might need to be charging time and a half and everything. While y'all were doing the show, I learned that the folks that were supposed to be here today won't actually be here till tomorrow. So maybe I should charge them twice as much since they won't be here till tomorrow, since we were having that conversation. Maybe I should.
Oh, yeah. Just hold a second. I'd like to mention something that I should have mentioned earlier when I was speaking initially. My wife and I, both of us, have been double charged at retail stores several times. And we caught it, but many people wouldn't bother to check. And so when a retailer double charges and people don't respond to make a correction, is making easy free money. And that's happening. You almost think it's a conspiracy because it's happening so often in so many retailers. So everybody who is watching this show, the next time you go to a retailer, carefully check your receipt to make sure you haven't been double charged because there's a very good chance that you might have been.
Wow.
Milan, along those same lines and everything, I just actually did an order yesterday from DoorDash, and I can tell you that they are notorious, and I'm sure that Jim can testify to this as well, for missing orders, because I ordered a number of things, and chili was on the list, and the chili never came. So definitely to your point, Milan, check your receipts, because sometimes they will give you a credit if they realize their mistake. So I have got a credit that is involved as well.
Mark, a little advice for tomorrow.
Yes.
They will come and they will do their job and
Yes.
they will finish their job. What you do, show them at the door. Just ask them to leave. So when they will ask, oh, what about my payment? You said your payment. Yesterday was your payment day. You were supposed to work yesterday. I allowed you to come today because I had nothing better to do. Thank you and get out of here. And that's
Yes. Well, I just think that, I'm still stunned by the general perception of the economy as poor. You see this in polling about the presidential elections, and they say that, Trump will be better at handling the economy than Biden. And, I don't know why Biden is not getting any credit, but he isn't. And, the common perception is the economy
it's
is
not
better.
time yet, Jim. It's not time yet. Wait a little bit, 3, 4 months into New Year, when interest rates will start going down, then you'll see. Because right now it's too far from election. So whatever signals, whatever
Yes,
message
yes.
you send now, they
Yeah.
will be lost by the time of the election. But when they will start April, May, and will increase the messages and it's not
Yes.
just interest rates. There will be various.
I'll totally agree. Ignore polls until it's closer to the election, and even then,
Yes.
uh,
And
but
based on yesterday, what's happened in Colorado,
I know
we are not even sure that Trump will end up as a nominee.
it's
I mean,
that's a very interesting topic. I'm fascinated by it. Because I think it's going to dig in people's heels that are Trump supporters already, and because they're keeping them off the ballot, that'll be just making them angry. But the other thing I saw was 27% of the Republicans think that Trump committed crimes,
Yeah.
felony crimes, but only 13% think that he shouldn't be president. That's a 14% disconnect right there. I mean, come on. He committed felonies and you're still going to vote for him? Yeah, he committed them. So what?
Nixon said, "My fellow Americans, your president is not a crook."
Yes.
Remember Nixon
The
saying
checker speech, yes. Well, the checker speech was when he was vice president, right? But
I
I'm not a
think
crook.
that compared to Nixon, is that Trump is a real bad deal for the United States.
Oh,
It
horrible.
could change country quite a bit. There are many international commentators that I'm listening from Europe or so on. They're really scared that once Trump is president, he will pull U.S. out of NATO.
Yeah.
He will completely disengage from Europe, from elsewhere. And
Mhm.
you see, basically, the U.S. foreign policy has been unchanged since the end of Second World War until Trump became president. There were different administrations. There were Republicans. There were Democrats.
Yeah,
But the
sure.
foreign policy was the same. It had little change until Trump came to power. Now everything is hanging. Everything is nobody is certain about anything. And second, he's coming second because now he doesn't have to worry about re-election, so he can do horrible things to United States, really.
Why does he have so much popular support, Sasha?
Okay, I think that most of the, how to say it politely, they're not very bright people, to tell you the truth. And they like this phenomena of the person who is even more idiot than they are. So it's a validation. Watching Trump, it's a validation that we are not so stupid. Look at this man. Therefore, they love him. It's a validation of their own.
Sasha, when you take a look at the United States, it's the fourth most populous country on the planet. With
Yes.
so many people there, there has to be some silly and not very bright people. But also take a look at uh, the most respected universities on the planet. Of the top 10, 6 are American. What does that say? What does it say when you take a look at the Nobel Prize winners, that so many are Americans? They come from somewhere else. They come to the United States because of the opportunities they have to become a Nobel Prize winner. So
And
give it
some
all.
of those Nobel winners are Jews. American Jews, for that
Yeah,
matter.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
But I think the situation with U.S. university will change in the next few years because they are definitely becoming worse and worse suitable for our times. They have all this liberal and horrible teachings. And it's not only just university, it's American school just as
Yeah,
well.
I think the K through 12 is really where we need to put our energies. But to go back to your question, Milan, in 2016, I really didn't blame people for voting for Trump because the gridlock in Congress was just annoying so many people. We were just fed up with the lack of
James, you realize that a large number of congressmen have quit. Congress people have quit entirely because they feel so ineffective
right.
because of the gridlock that you're
Right.
talking about.
So they thought, let's throw a
useful.
monkey wrench into it, and Trump seemed to be the perfect monkey wrench. But we had 4 years to learn about this guy. 91 indictments, something like that, and 71, 91, I forget the exact number, but it's a staggering amount. He's on trial in New York, in Georgia, in D.C. He interfered with a peaceful transfer of power. That for the first time, and it was one of the things that about American democracy that people such as myself were most proud of. We had the peaceful transfer of power, and what other country can say that?
That's true.
And so, when he interfered with that, any American should have said enough with this guy, but he plays to people's hatred,
Exactly.
and throughout the course of history, people want to look down on somebody, and Trump gives them someone to blame. It was, I can't have a Mexican judge, from Mexico, because, come on, all of his type of racial hatred of the other. He fans the flames, and there's a significant population. I don't think it goes beyond 1/3, but his poll numbers will never get below 33%. And so he can always poll around 40%, because there are people that are ignorant.
One of the reasons why George Washington is remembered so well by historians is because he was the first person in power to say that 8 years is enough. I don't need any more than 8 years, and nobody should have any more than 8 years. The first person in history ever to say it, in power in history ever to say that.
And Trump, when he was they're talking about president for life, he said, "It sounds good to me." So that's the difference. One of the many differences between George Washington and Donald Trump. If this country is stupid enough to re-elect that guy, how can I justify living here?
Jim, I would like to add something to what you just said earlier, is that there are a lot of people in the United States and probably all of Trump's supporters. They hate United States. They have Congress. They had congressmen. They hate everybody. And that's why they believe that Trump, now this is the worst punishment for the United States and Congress and everybody else, to have someone like Trump. Go for it. Let's vote for Trump. That's
break it down.
People
tear it down. Yeah.
Let's talk for a minute about why people hate the United States. Actions speak louder than words. Everybody's putting their money into the US dollar. How badly do they hate the United States while they're putting their money into the US dollar? Why are they putting their money in the US dollar?
There is no alternative. There is no alternative. However, there could be one in maybe 5-10 years' time if BRICS will follow up on their plans to create gold-based currency. That could be alternative to a dollar, and very formidable ones, because why would you invest into paper where you can invest into gold-baked? And actually, I believe that now maybe it's already a good time to invest in gold, silver, and precious metals, because if interest rates will keep going down next year, so US dollar will be definitely going down. So that could affect prices for gold and silver, even if prices may not go in much higher, but simply because US dollar will go lower. So automatically their prices will go higher. I sold today a few puts on Newmont Mining. I don't I'm not sure whether I will be exercised, but I will be happy to be exercised on this.
Fiat currency is currency which is not backed by something solid like silver and gold. Is
Yeah.
most currency in use in the world today fiat currency? It is, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, there are some attempts like crypto, Bitcoin, and all that stuff. Um, Lately, actually, Bitcoin started to climb to a much higher level. I guess all sellers were done and lost all their money by some mid previous year. Probably they roll out of Bitcoins, their money, and their wives probably, and children as well. So now there is very little resistance, and you know that any currency or stocks or whatever it might be, it's moving in the area of the least resistance.
Yeah.
So since there is no resistance to selling, obviously Bitcoin will move higher. It probably will move to 50,000, maybe even 60,000, and so on. Then there will be sellers who started to accumulate it from 20 to 25,000 apiece, 30,000 apiece, so on. So one sooner or later they will start selling.
Well, I didn't get into Bitcoin because I didn't understand it. So I studied blockchain, and now I understand it better. And I think the real purpose of this is to get away from central banks controlling the economies, and to, because there's absolutely no reason that I would do an electronic transfer from my account, which gets deducted immediately, and doesn't show up in where I'm transferring it to immediately. So who's holding on to that money and who's profiting from that money in between? So the Bitcoin kind of things is instantaneous. And
Jim, I tried it myself. And I think I talked about it several months ago that I tried transfer money Bitcoin way, and this is very unpleasant experience. The speed is definitely not there. The verification process tedious and incredible, and you have to provide proof of your money, where it's coming from, and wire transferring, and so on. So don't believe this people who are trying to promote Bitcoin or any other.
No, I did not. No.
Don't trust them. That's all bullshit.
And now I use World Remit when I'm transferring money to, say, an African country, and it's very quick, and it's not tedious at all.
Yeah.
So they've really got to do a bang-up job to get me away from using what I do use now. I mean, and they haven't impressed me enough to do that. Not even close. Yeah.
I have shares of Canadian bank CIBC.
Yes.
And also I'm dealing with them, but I have other banks that I'm dealing more often. But they have now a very interesting option to transfer your funds electronically without any fees. So let's see, I'm not sure how it works with African countries.
Right.
But I did transfer some funds to Switzerland or to UK, and indeed there was no fee transaction, very quick, instantaneous.
Yeah.
And I really don't know if you need anything beyond that.
I have several cousins in Serbia, two of whom are physicians, and one of whom is a dentist, and they lack for equipment, and they lack for so many things that my wife and I have been sending money to Serbia for quite a long time now, and it's instant, and the cost, you can ignore it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. So we have options available.
Yes.
So don't have to rush to cryptocurrency yet.
No, I'm still avoiding it as if it were the plague, and not because I don't understand it anymore, but they haven't made their case. So why should I?
Are some people involved in cryptocurrencies because what they're doing is not traceable? They're trying to hide something?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's a factor.
A lot of money for purchase of weapons. They've been transferred always through crypto. They don't use normal money exchanges. So essentially, it's a quasi-criminal environment where you are, and I think that's what they're after: the large amounts of money from criminals or so on. And people like you and me, they're probably making it even more complicated to use transactions what they're offering because they're not interested. Although I was transferring a large amount of money, it was 56,000 Canadian dollars. It's a sizable amount, but I had to go through the hoops, and I was working on that for about 3 weeks
And
until.
that's not an acceptable profit for gun trafficking.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for
Oh,
the
thank you.
program.
Great to be with you.
Great trading week ahead of us, and maybe we'll do another show next Wednesday.
Yeah, I was going to ask, will we have another show before the end of the year?
Why not? Let's do it. Market
we-
will open, hopefully, yes.
Yeah.
At least we will see our net results for the year, and we'll try to evaluate it. What mistakes have you made? What brilliant decisions you've made? So it will be interesting to look at it.
Okay.
Thank you for inviting me today.
I hope I can join you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right.
See you
Bye-bye.
next. Bye-bye.